get onto that, I neglected to include last week a very important aspect to our posture, and that is our conversational tone and the pace at which we speak. I have been, or I am, quite an enthusiastic person. I tend to be a bit of a high energy person, or I used to be. And so I was challenged again by my supervisor for bringing too much enthusiasm into the counselling room, to realise that if people are depressed or anxious or in a state of trauma, that they might find my enthusiasm tiring or overwhelming. So another example of where we have to put aside who we might want to be, how it's easy for us to be, and develop other aspects of ourselves that are there, but we mightn't have necessarily tuned into before. So just a word about that is, when people are angry, it affects the prefrontal cortex, which makes a person stop thinking. So when we're angry, we actually do stop thinking properly. So that's why people can do silly things. So by staying calm, we're helping people who might be anxious to think. So again, all about the counselling. Another thing I was rebuked for was using encouragement in the wrong way. Again, encouraging them if they'd had a good week. Oh, well done. I was told, nope, that's not right, because when they haven't had a good week and they don't get the well done, then they're going to feel a failure. So later on, we'll be looking at how to encourage. So just a few things that I learned along the way that I just wanted to share with you. So the art of conversation in counselling is the ability to facilitate the other person's exploration of his issues. So it's a journey, it's an exploration. To develop an understanding of that person, their worldview, their norms, their cultural outlook, the whole dimension of the setting of the problem they've come to us about. We're to guide without controlling, and it's a process by which we uncover truths and insights to help them. So there are a variety of ways that we can aid conversations. I've got about 10 here. First of all, brief prompts. So the person stops, but you feel there's more that could be said. So you might just say, and then what happened? Or go on, would you like to carry on or go on? So prompts, seeking clarification. This is really important, because if we start assuming that we're understanding, we can actually cause an offence later on. So if you're not sure, just be honest. Say, look, I'm not sure I followed you, or this is what I think you're saying. Have I got that right? So just be honest. Reflecting is a good part of listening. Reflecting is not only reflecting the contents, but their feelings. At first, I struggled with this, and in a way I thought it was a bit silly, but I had to practice it as part of my training. And the more I practiced it, the more I realized how powerful it is. And then my husband would start doing it on me. And I found that, wow, when people reflect back to you what you're saying and feeling, it's very powerful, and you really feel heard. So an example might be, the counsellor says, I'm really uptight. And I might say, yeah, I can see that you are feeling that way. Or another counsellor might say, I really didn't want to go and see my father. And I might say, I can see that must have been really hard for you to see your father. So it's sort of like validating also what they're going through. And it means, okay, you're hearing me, that I found that hard. Another tip is developing the issue. Sometimes someone might stop a bit short out of telling the full story for whatever reason, maybe nervousness, anxiety, anger, tiredness. So you might just say, well, could you tell me more about that? Or we started to talk about, could we go back and talk about some more about that? Another one is checking in or following hunches. And for us, that could be promptings of the Holy Spirit. You know, the Holy Spirit is very much active and alive in our sessions. I often marvel at the way he'll drop scriptures into my minds or certain thoughts or questions. And so at a good time, so be careful with our timing that we don't interrupt or distract, we could put out an invitational and a tentative inquiry. And two phrases I love: I'm wondering, or I'm noticing. So we're not coming in with an opinion or a statement, but it's a loose tentative. I'm wondering how you feeling about that, or what have you been thinking about that since we last talked? So I'm wondering and I'm noticing. Highlighting inconsistencies. Sometimes the counsellee will convey a double message. So we might clarify. So you tell me that you love your father, but you never visit him. Or you say you're not angry, but you sound angry. So that'll often happen, a double message, and it's good to clarify that, because again, we're helping them to explore what they're thinking, what they're feeling. So it's an exploration, and we're just helping them to explore these things, to give them insights, hopefully. Weighing up options. This is one I often use, and I often use my hands. I can just get that right in the video. So you're saying, on the one hand, you realize that the boyfriend's bad, but on the other hand, you don't want to stop seeing him. So often I just can't get in front of the video. So on the one hand, on this hand, and then I go like that. So you're like weighing it up. And it just helps them to see, okay, so we've got two equal and opposing thoughts here. Which way is it going to go? Making a statement of encouragement. We all need encouragement. And remember, as they're talking through and working through personal issues, it's hard. And so we just, encourage on the way. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. That must have been hard. Or, thank you for coming today. I'm sure that took a lot of courage. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this time together, we don't use our encouragement to be related to a reward. You're doing so well. Well done. Whereas you might say, it seems that you've had a good week. How are you feeling about it? Do you see the slight difference? Okay, validation. This is verbalizing what we've heard, and it acknowledges that we understand what they're going through. Again, I found this a really valuable tool. But it's another form of reflection in a way, because you're bringing into the room what they may or may not be aware of. It's another opportunity for them to show that I'm tracking with them, that I'm following them, that I'm with them as they're talking and sharing their heart with me. Gosh, that must have been so hard. How did you get through that time? I can see you're really excited about this. I can see that your children mean a lot to you. So it's a part of empathy. It's just acknowledging their experience. Paraphrasing or summarizing. This is a really important tool. It captures the main content of what the person has said. again, very important. And some people advise stopping at certain stages through a counselling session and just say, look, do you mind if I just summarise to date where we're at and what I think you're saying, just to make sure I've got it right. So again, it's really important. It stops misinterpretations, wrong assumptions. So you can just say things like what I just said, or you might say, so what I seem to be hearing is, so what you're saying is, from what you've told me, it seems as if, from listening to what you're saying, would it be correct to say that? There are also times when we need to impart information. So again, we do this in an invitational way. We say, okay, would you be happy to look at some scriptures around this? Or you seem interested in that topic. Would you be happy to take an article home to read on that? So always invitational. Even if we give homework, everything is invitational. We're not I'm trying to think of the word, autocrats. No, it's not the word, but when we're not bossies or bossy britches, everything's invitational. Because then we're more likely to get them to commit if they buy into it, rather than just imposing things on them. I got a bit distracted then. So I'm not sure if I said distinguish between facts and opinions. So when we part information, be careful to distinguish between facts and opinions. Provoking changes. As the counselling progresses, there'll be times when we need to help the client to change or to shift. Now those shifts can be small, particularly if we're dealing with, say, addictions. There might be many small shifts which will end up in being a big change. So this is quite a big topic, and so I'll just discuss it briefly. Questioning is a huge part of helping a client to shift, getting to the heart of the matter. We'll look at that more next week. Contrasting, and we talked about this a bit before. So they might say, oh, I know drunkenness is a sin, and I know I'm hurting my family, but I just can't stop drinking. So you could say, well, I see you're seeing the problem now, so I'm wondering, what would it take for you to change? What would change look like for you? So asking for a commitment to change, I often use a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being, I'm not interested in change. 10, I'm very motivated to change. I might say, so between 1 and 10, how committed are you to change? And they might say 2. So I'll say, okay, what would it take for you to get up to a 2.5 or a 3? And then they might tell me, so I'll say, so have we shifted to a 3? Yep. So on that level of commitment, what are you prepared to do this week that will be different and bring about change? So using a scale to get their commitment, because they mightn't realise that they're not very committed. It's amazing, as we externalise our thoughts, we actually hear ourselves thinking, and we become more aware of what we're truly thinking. Also keeping them accountable to commitments they've made. So often, say like if I'm dealing with someone who has got to confess something to a spouse, we might agree on a commitment. So then I will follow up the next week and say, when we were last together, you left with the intention of, did that happen? And if the answer is no, I'll say, well, could we talk about that again today? Are you happy to talk about that? So that all those sort of things of asking for commitment to change, keeping them accountable to commitment, contrasting, all helps to provoke change.